you. So on the issue of gun violence, let me start with this, and back to the point about my previous service. I started my elected career as the elected district attorney of San Francisco. And I will tell you that, and that was following a career of being a courtroom prosecutor, where among the cases that I prosecuted, homicide cases. So I have witnessed and seen autopsies. I know what guns do and gun violence does to the human body. For so many of you, you too know what gun violence does to people, to a community, to families, to the psyche of a community, to the well-being and health of a community. So when we have this conversation among us, this is not some intellectual, academic discourse. It is very real. It is part of our lived existence. And it is that approach that I bring then to my thoughts about this issue. So I started a college tour last fall because, I have to tell you, I love Gen Z. Yes, I know, but I love Gen Z. And it will be a humbling fact to many of us when we realize that anyone who is 18 today, they were born in 2005. Indeed, yes, wow. And this generation, for so many of these issues, it's a lived experience. Think about it. For this generation of who I call young leaders, they've only known the climate crisis. In fact, they've coined a term, climate anxiety, to describe their fears about having children or buying a home for fear that it may be destroyed because of extreme climate incidents. They witnessed George Floyd being killed. They endured a historic pandemic where they lost also significant phases of their educational process. They have, through their lives, and I would ask at the college tour them to raise their hands in these auditoriums. Who of you, please raise your hand, I would ask, had to endure an active shooter drill any time between kindergarten and 12th grade? Almost every hand went up. And in fact, I'd say to the press that was always in the room and the older adults, please take a look and take account of this. Because I think so many older adults don't really understand what our children, the children of our community, have been going through. And also, they, at the height of their reproductive years, just witnessed the highest court in our land take a freedom from them to make decisions about their own body, such that they will have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. So on so many of these issues, it was reinforced for me during this college tour that these are lived experiences and it has had a profound impact on their lives. And they, therefore, think about these issues with a sense of urgency that the solutions that are often at hand be implemented. And they are right to demand that we, in positions of elected leadership right now, do something about it with a sense of urgency. They are acutely aware of what we know, which is that gun violence is the leading cause of death of the children of America. Leading cause of death, not car accidents, not some form of cancer, gun violence. 1 in 5 Americans has a family member that was killed as a result of gun violence. I have traveled most of your states over the last 3 years. I have met with parents who say a silent prayer every time their child gets on the school bus or they drop them off at school, that there's nobody running around with an assault weapon breaking into their school, the school of their child, while they're at a place where they should be fulfilling their God-given capacity to learn. So the young people of our country have lived through this and they want to change. And they understand what I think so many of us do. It is a false choice to suggest you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, But is it not reasonable that we would have an assault weapons ban, understanding that assault weapons were literally designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly and are weapons of war with no place on the streets of a civil society? They want and know. They understand, like so many of us, the logic behind universal background checks, which is pretty simple. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You just might want to know. It's reasonable. Same point with red flag laws. So on this issue, it is a lived experience, and they are aware of the solutions. And I think, frankly, when they start voting in their numbers, we're going to see a sea change. But I will also say on this issue, I was just in North Carolina, and I met with a group of young students. They're in middle school. And I convened a group of them without the press. It wasn't about the press, to talk with them because each one of them had personally experienced gun violence, either because they witnessed it, they had a family member, or they were there. Well, they witnessed it when someone was shot. And the undiagnosed and therefore untreated trauma that results from violence of any sort, and in particular gun violence, is very real. I would urge the mayors here, there's a book that I'm very fond of. It's called The Deepest Well, and it was written by a former Surgeon General, and talks about the prevalence in our cities, urban, suburban, rural communities, of undiagnosed, untreated trauma, and how that can then lead to a number of behavioral issues, obviously, but also physiological symptoms. And when we think about our youngest children through adulthood witnessing this kind of violence and the impact it has then, that becomes almost inherited trauma, not genetically inherited, but inherited from the environment, and what that results in terms of behaviors that are not productive for a community, much less harmful to the individual.